In honor of Bank of California Stadium opening on Sunday, and LAFC playing their first ever home game on Sunday, and also the announcement of that there will be an LAFC day tomorrow in LA, which is a bit weird, and I can already hear the salty and certainly every single Galaxy fan getting triggered by hearing the announcement of that. I decided to wear a LA Galaxy jersey for this preview. By the way, I just bought this about a week ago, and I actually also did a jersey kind of box opening. If you haven't watched that video, make sure you go check it out. And it's a very short video too. It's only like 3 minutes long, so make sure you guys check that out. But either way, let's talk about match week number 9 and all 11 games in match week number 9. First of all, because there's 11 game in MLS, and you know that there's always going to be one team that's going to win that sweepstake of getting a bye week. This week, the winner is the Portland Timbers. So congratulations, Portland Timbers. You are this week's winner of the only team on a bye week awards. Although, to be fair, I will say this for the Timbers. I don't really think they kind of won this. I feel like in some way you could say that they kind of earned it, considering the fact that they knocked off the best team in MLS last week, and pretty much now there's only one team left in MLS that is unbeaten, and of course we'll talk about it when I get down here. But first, let's talk about the Friday matchup, the only Friday matchup that is. It's Vancouver versus RSL. Vancouver is currently 3-1-4. I don't know why the dash line here just gone missing for some reason, but Vancouver is 3-1-4 and RSL is 3-1-3. Vancouver have now gone in a 3-game losing streak, while RSL did beat Colorado in the Rocky Mountain Derby last week. And this is a massive game for both teams. This is an absolute massive game for both teams. And I think in some way you could say that this is a bigger game for Vancouver, because the drumming of Carl Robinson potentially going to get sacked is just getting louder and louder every time Vancouver loses. Like the Whitecaps fan base, as I heard, has gotten really tired of Carl Robinson, and they want him to get out of the club. And you know, right now for Vancouver, it has gone all wrong this season. Like, they got off to just such a good start, and I think that's part because they had a healthy Kai Kamara. But once Kai Kamara went down, and once Vancouver had to rely on their only plan A but no plan B situation, they are just getting fined out. And in the last game, not only they got fined out, but they completely lost their heads and getting 2 players sent off and get absolutely destroyed by Sporting KC. So the confidence is at an all-time low for the Whitecaps right now, but they really need this one because, first, this is a home game. They need to stop this 3-game losing streak, and if they lose again to RSL, and you know, RSL so far it has been they've just been very inconsistent this season. I mean, I know they won 3-0 against Colorado, but Colorado was down to 10 men in that game, and they had to wait till like the 81st minute to finally score a goal. It wasn't like they just completely dominate Colorado in that game. So for Vancouver, they've got to win this. Like, if they do not win this, then that seat of Carl Robinson is just going to get even harder. And in the upcoming weeks, if Vancouver does not pick up, I won't be surprised if the ownership of the Whitecaps sack Carl Robinson, because it is just not good enough right now for the Whitecaps. Next up, Atlanta versus Montreal. Atlanta 5-1-1. Montreal 2-0-5. Atlanta won 5 of their last 6, while Montreal has lost 3 straight. And doing those 3-game losing streak that the Impact has gone through, they have give up a lot of goals. Like, they have give up 5 goals last week to LAFC. They gave up 3 goals against the Red Bulls, and I think they gave up 4 goals against the Revs the other week too. So they have conceded a total of 12 goals in the last 3 games. It is just absolutely insane how bad the Montreal defense is. And I thought Montreal coming into this season, the one of the problems that Montreal certainly is having this season is basically scoring, and the fact that they're only relying on guys like Ignacio Piatti and Jason Vargas as the one to score. But now they might have a bigger problem in the defense too, and they're just leaking in so many bad goals so far in these last couple of stretch. And it doesn't get any better because they're playing Atlanta. And this, I really think this is a recipe of a blowout. This has every way and everything of a blowout because Atlanta is just an absolute free scoring team right now. You know, they are just non-stop right now. You know, they won 2-0 against the Galaxy. That makes them getting 5 wins out of the last 6. And they have not lost they have not lost a single game since that 4-0 loss against Houston. So, yeah, this is not looking good for the Impact. Although, one thing I will say about the Impact, and one thing I will give Impact fan a little bit hope, is the fact that so far this season, there's been a couple of big surprises every single week. There's always tends to be a game this season where one game's just like, it's just a team that are not supposed to win somehow pulled off a win and pulled off an upset. Last week it was Chicago that pulled off an upset against the Red Bulls. I think Minnesota did a couple of times early in the season. So yeah, maybe they'll be that team that maybe pull off an upset against Atlanta. Although it is just highly unlikely with the fact that Atlanta is just they're not only a very good team, but they're playing at home too, and they are just unbeatable at home, and they score a lot of goals at home too. So something tells me this is going to be like 4 or 5-0. I just have a feeling about that. But yeah, next up, Toronto versus Chicago. Now, this time I did not put TFC2 because I'm assuming Greg Vanney won't just completely ditch his first team and put in a bunch of TFC2 guys. I think he still put a couple of guys that were part of that heartbreaking loss against Chivas, and you know, I did a live stream of that. I'm obviously sort of heartbroken too because I want the first ever MLS team to win CCL. And to be fair, the media has been really kind to TFC even with the loss. They've been saying that they're very proud of what they have done and the fact that, you know, the journey that they have gone through in this CONCACAF Champions League campaign. The fact that they've been able to beat Tigres and they've been able to beat Club America. It's just very impressive for TFC, and you know, it's definitely heartbreaking for them to lose the CONCACAF Champions League. And certainly I think in this game, you know, even though it's only been 3 days since they lost that one, the wounds are still fresh there. And I just have a feeling that they're probably not going to be up for this one against Chicago. Chicago, remember, last week they beat the Red Bulls at Red Bull Arena. And that was what I said about how it was a surprising result. So, you know, the Fire can potentially do it again. It's interesting, the fact that it seemed like this season, and I think I'm starting seeing a little bit of a pattern of how every time I say a team is doom and gloom, they somehow kind of like pull through. Remember how I said about Dallas and how it was kind of like doom and gloom with the fact that they were struggling to get points at home? Well, it looks like they are pretty fine right now. And remember how I said that I said New England was doom and gloom early in the season because this team is just early in the preseason with the squad that they had. I didn't think they were going to do anything, and now they shocked everybody by being 4th in the Eastern Conference. And it seems like it's happening again with Chicago and also DC United too. I thought they were doom and gloom in that department, and they got a win against Columbus at home while they're down to 10 men in that game. So yeah, it seemed like every time I've been saying that a team look like they are just doomed this season, they completely revitalized them. It's almost like I basically kind of like reverse jinxed them and saying that they're doom and gloom, and it turns out they weren't really doom and gloom. Now, unless you're a Union fan, right? Unless you're a Philly fan, and how I always said that they are doom and gloom, well, yeah, they are still doom and gloom right now. And speaking of which, let's talk about this one. Philly versus DC United. This is what I call the sad derby, also known as the last place derby. Even though technically both of these teams are not last place in the East, TFC is currently last place in the East, but that's because they had so many they basically put the CONCACAF Champions League as their highest priority, and they week in and week out basically fielding a very weak squad against a pretty much better MLS opponent. So that's why they're doing very badly this season, and I'm pretty sure they're gonna recover this in these next couple of weeks. But these two teams are not going to be recovering no matter who wins this. I mean, both of these teams are just so bad right now. Philly, it's been an absolute depressing time to be a Union fan, and this feels very similar to what happened last year, where the Union actually went like 250 something days without a win, and how it felt like they were never ever gonna get a win. But right now it's just 200 minutes without a goal, and they have scored only 3 goals this season. That is the lowest of any single team in the MLS. So they're basically just averaging just half a goal per game. And ever since the first game of the season, when they won 2-0 against the Rev, they've only scored 1 goal. 1 goal in 5 games. And the fact that they've been getting a lot of chances to score more than just 1 goal is another reason why it's shocking what's going on with Philly. And everything is just going wrong with Philly right now, whether it's just the inexperienced defense, or just the lack of creativity in the midfield, or just going forward, nobody can score, nobody can finish a shot. It's like I said, it is a very sad time. Although DC United will probably feel the same feeling, although they did get a very big 1-0 win against the Columbus Crew while they were down to 10 men, and how the fans were celebrating like they won the MLS Cup. There is still a major problem with this DC United team, and it's almost similar problem to Philly. The defense is still pretty kind of weak. The midfield doesn't have a lot of creativity, and they don't really have a real striker up front. And I think that's the only difference between Philly. At least Philly has probably a real striker called CJ Sapon. DC United, I don't know who exactly their real striker is. Maybe Patrick Mullins is their real striker, although I haven't seen him score a single goal this season. So, if your main striker does not score a goal for you this whole season, yikes, this is bad. And hence, this is why I said this is the sad derby, because whoever wins this, it doesn't matter who wins this. Whoever wins this, the very next week when they get a better MLS opponent, they're just gonna suck. And I also have a feeling that potentially this is gonna end in a draw, and how also this game is on national television, and I don't think anybody will watch this game. Like, unless you're a Philly and DC fan, nobody is gonna watch this game, because everybody know the quality of both of these teams are just gonna be really, really bad. But yeah, moving on from potentially one of the most uninterested game of the year to probably one of the most interesting game of the week. New England versus Sporting KC. And if I would have told you at the start of the season that New England versus Sporting KC would be a very interesting game, I would just laugh at you. I would say that Sporting KC is just going to roll over New England because they are just so bad. But like I said about New England, they have just proved everybody wrong so far. They're off to a very good start, and they are playing against a Sporting KC team that is just fresh off of that absolute beaten that they gave to Vancouver, and certainly they are full of confidence coming into Gillette Stadium for this. And I think really this game could potentially prove whether or not New England is for real or not, because they're playing against a Sporting KC team that is really hot and probably are the best team right now in the Western Conference. And if they maybe get a draw or even get a win out of this, then yeah, I think we got to take the Revs pretty seriously. And I think, like what I said before, the reason why New England has been so good so far this season has mainly due to the fact that guys like Diego Fagundes and Theo Bunbury and also Penela, three guys that are kind of like unknown, although I think people known about Diego Fagundes and his kind of skills there, but he has really kind of like taken it to the next level, as with Bunbury and Penela. This Revs team have just, with so many unknown in the beginning of the season, it looks like the unknown all of a sudden started to work out, and it seemed like, despite the fact that they don't have their best player league win in this lineup, it seemed like it doesn't really matter at all. It seemed like they actually have the puzzle on this team, even though it didn't look like that was the case. But like I said, it is going to be a tough task against Sporting KC. I mean, it's getting. I have a feeling maybe New England can get a draw out of this because Sporting KC, they're playing on the road. And, if this was at Sporting KC, then I think Sporting KC would win this. But because this is on the road and they're playing New England, and New England have been really good at home. I mean, they just came off of came off of a loss against Dallas, which ended their 11-game unbeaten streak at Gillette Stadium. But that place is still a fortress. So I think New England does have a shot at this, and like I said, if they get something out of this, then they look like they are for real this season. Next up, Columbus versus San Jose. So I talk about this match. One thing I actually forgot to mention in the match preview of this is that I forgot to mention that this is the winless derby. And the reason why I say this is the winless derby is both of these teams are winless in a long time. Crew has been winless in 4 matches. The Quakes have been winless in 5 matches. The Quakes haven't won a single game ever since they beat Minnesota on opening night. And Columbus, I think they haven't won since, I don't even remember. I think it was DC United that was their last win, which they won 3-1 against them. But yeah, it is just, this is going to be a game that I'm really hoping that because Columbus is in such a kind of a bad run that we can take advantage of this game. Although the always big question with the Quakes so far this season is how is this defense going to hold up, and what exactly is Michael Starhays going to do in terms of trying to stabilize defense. I talked about how they will stabilize defense in my match preview, and I'm not even going to mention it because go watch that video. You will find out what are the ways that we can stabilize the defense of the San Jose Earthquakes. But I really think we have to get something out of this. We got to get at least a point out of this because I'm tired of the Quakes going on Eastern Conference road trip and just come back with a goose egg. And if they do that, then it's just the same old Quakes. There's just no progression. But they're playing a Columbus team that, despite the fact they are winless, they still have a lot of talented player on their team. And yeah, it's going to be interesting. It is going to be a very, very interesting game. But yeah, next up, Minnesota versus Houston. Talk about winless streak. Another team that is on a long winless streak is Minnesota. But their winless streak, unlike these two teams that involve a draw in between their winless streak, all 4 games that they have gone winless are all losses. They have lost 4 in a row. I think they are currently on the longest losing streak in MLS. And for Minnesota, and certainly for Loons fan, it it has been a depressing year in terms of just back-breaking injury. I mean, I don't know what Minnesota got deserved to have these kind of back-breaking injury. I don't know what they did to the soccer gods that anger them and just throw these kind of curse kind of injury to them, because this week they find out that their attacking midfield player, or I think not attacking midfield, but their winger player Ethan Finlay is gonna be potentially out for the year because of a torn ACL, and that's the second torn ACL they have suffered this season alone, and the second one in just 2 months. I mean, it is just so sad right now to see what Minnesota is dealing with, all these injury to their biggest star. And certainly my condolence to Ethan Finlay, and certainly wish him a speedy recovery. But Minnesota has just been so unlucky. Just as you thought that this season potentially they can kind of have a better season than they did in the first season. The first season was just them coming into the MLS and just be happy with it. But now the second season is supposed to be the season where I thought that they potentially could take the next step and kind of improve on their previous season, but unfortunately they've been hit with back-breaking injury. And for Houston, this is a good chance for them to get a win, because Minnesota, the confidence level on that team, and with a combination of these injuries to their biggest star, has to be low right now. So I expect Houston to win this. Hopefully they will not bottle a lead like they have done twice this season on the road. But we'll see how this is going to go. And maybe Minnesota will somehow get a win over Houston. Because remember last time when Kevin Molino went down, and how I said that was very terrible, and how it looks like it's just going to be a rough season for the Loons. They got a win out of that. Now, I'm not saying that it is still not going to be a rough season. I think it's going to be a long season for Minnesota, with so many star players now out of injury. It's going to be interesting to see how they can respond, and let's see if they can potentially get something out of this. Next up, the Galaxy versus the Red Bulls. The Galaxy are 3-1-3. The Red Bulls are 3-0-3. Both of these teams lost at home last season, or not last season, last game that is. The Galaxy lost to Atlanta 2-0, which is not a big surprise, because I thought Atlanta was potentially going to win that one, since the Galaxy are pretty much like last season. They just cannot win at StubHub Center. I mean, so far this season, they have already lost 2 out of their first 4, and it would have been 3 out of their last 4 if this LAFC team didn't decide to choke in El Tráfico and basically blew a 3-0 lead. So, yeah, that was kind of expected. This was not expected. The Red Bulls losing to Chicago, that was definitely not what I thought it would happen, especially the fact that the Red Bull were back to full strength for the first time this season, and they're playing against a Chicago team are just in such a bad form, and they lost to them, and now they're going to have to regroup to play against the Galaxy, and I really think the Red Bulls are better than what they are right now. I mean, if you look on the table right now, they're currently in 6th place. I just feel like this Red Bull team could, with the quality that they have shown so far this season, it just feel like they could be better right now. They look like kind of like a top 4 team, but for some reason they're in 6th place right now. Although, having said that, the Red Bulls haven't done very well so far this season on the road. I remember they lost to RSL early this season, and I think that was the only road game that they had. I forgot what was the other road game that they have, but they have not done well on the road, and especially the fact that they have to travel all the way across the other side of the country to play this one, which is never easy for an Eastern Conference team. It's gonna be really interesting to see if the Red Bulls can bounce back. And for the Galaxy, the Galaxy has been inconsistent this year. Like, we have seen the best of the Galaxy, and then at times we have seen the worst of the Galaxy. And I think the last game was the absolute worst. I mean, they got absolutely mowed down by Atlanta, and I was surprised that Atlanta actually won that one by 2-0 because Atlanta just completely outshot them, outpossessed them, and if it wasn't for David Bingham making some big save, that game would have ended 4 or 5-0. So for the Galaxy, they gotta sort this out. They gotta try to find a flaw on their team, and I think the other thing that I will say about the Galaxy is they gotta figure out the defense of their team, because this defense that the Galaxy has is not very good. It's very similar to last season. Even with the addition that they have, it looked very similar. And they also have to figure out the whole Ola Kamara and Zlatan kind of situation. I've been hearing that Ola Kamara are not happy the fact that he's playing along with Zlatan, and the role that he is forced to be in is not the role that he want to be. It doesn't suit his style, and yeah, it just seemed like the Galaxy are now going to have to either play Kamara or Zlatan, and that they just cannot play together. And and Ola Kamara, so far it's been a very bad start to this season. I don't want to call this a flop just yet. I know some people have said that he's been absolutely horrible for the Galaxy, and they already start calling him a flop. I think give him maybe a couple more games, and if he just cannot perform, cannot continue to put on these kind of poor performance, then I think this is going to be a big flop. And who would have thought that, like, everybody back in the offseason when Kamara went to the Galaxy and Zardes went to Columbus, part of that trade, who would have thought that Columbus would have got the better deal? Like, everybody was saying that Columbus didn't get the better deal because Zardes was just, he's pretty much done and he will never kind of rediscover his form. Yeah, Zardes have scored 5 goals this season, and I think Kamara only scored 1, and the only goal he scored was the first game of the season. So yeah, who would have thought that Columbus got the better deal off of that one, even though it looked like the Galaxy got the better deal because they got an elite kind of goal scorer, that is Ola Kamara. But yeah, now moving on to the Sunday games. So I'm going to move myself a little bit for you guys to see this. So this game was supposed to be the battle of unbeaten this weekend. But unfortunately, NYCFC decided to not able to put the ball into the back of the net against Portland, despite the fact they completely outpossessed Portland and completely controlled the game in majority part of that match. They lost 3-0, and they are facing a team that is the only team that is unbeaten, and that, of course, is FC Dallas. I mean, who would have thought that in the beginning of the season that the only unbeaten team left in the season, the last team standings of the unbeaten, will be FC Dallas? I mean, coming into this season, I know that FC Dallas has a lot to prove, and they want to prove that last season was kind of like a fluke, but so far they have, and it's very strange in the FC Dallas case of them being unbeaten right now, because I really don't think they look like a team that deserve to be unbeaten. There's been some bump and bruises along the way, and so far I think one thing that a lot of people aren't talking about, and I'm starting to give a little bit more recognition about how Dallas defense is just absolutely rock solid. I think they have only conceded like 3 goals this season. They are just, the back line is just absolutely rock solid. The only issue I think for Dallas is just they had times where they just cannot put the ball into the back of the net. Guys like Mauro Diaz and Maxi Urruti just at time are kind of like not on the same page. Although in the last game they were sort of on the same page because both of them score. So yeah, it's weird in terms of FC Dallas case. And don't forget, FC Dallas had played their first 4 game at home, and they only played their first game on the road 2 weeks ago against the Revs, which they won. And then they play another game at home last week against oh god, who did they play last week? Oh, the Union. Yes, they played the Union in the last game and they won that game. I think it was 2-0 that they got the victory over the Philadelphia Union. And yeah, I mean, I think that right now for Dallas, even though they are the last unbeaten team, I just have a feeling that this game potentially they are going to lose this one. And keep in mind, I said this last week, and I think the previous week also, Dallas is beginning this really tough stretch where they have to play NYCFC in this game, and then they have to play two of the LAFC team, and they have to play each of them twice in that span, and they have to play TFC, I believe, on the road too. So this is a really brutal stretch that FC Dallas is running into, and I just have a feeling that by the end of this stretch, they might lose 1 or 2 games. Now, if they can still get some win over those games and not really lose a lot of those games, then maybe you could say that FC Dallas are one of those teams that potentially could compete, and that Oscar Pereira has kind of turned this team around after what happened last year. But there are still holes on this FC Dallas team, and a lot of them has to do with the midfield and going forward on the attack. But we shall see. We shall see if they can continue this unbeaten streak in this game against NYCFC, and it's certainly gonna be really tough because NYCFC just come off of a loss and they are very pissed off after that loss. So yeah, we'll see if FC Dallas can continue their unbeaten streak after this game, or will this be the last week of the MLS season where we will see an unbeaten team. But yeah, next up, 2 more games. Columbus versus Orlando. Or not Columbus. Colorado versus Orlando. I forgot Columbus played the Quakes earlier, but Colorado play against Orlando. Colorado are dead even at 2 in terms of win, loss, and draw. Well, Orlando are 4-2-1. Colorado, of course, lost 3-0 to RSL in the Rocky Mountain Derby. 3-0. And Orlando are pretty much the hottest team right now that is not named Atlanta, as they have now won 4 in a row. They have completely turned their season around in these last 4 games. They used to be near the bottom of the table. Now they're all the way up, I believe, 3rd in the table. And I have a feeling that this could be 5 in a row for Orlando City. Because this team is just absolutely on fire right now. I mean, everything is certainly clicking for this team. The attack is definitely clicking. The defense, although at times it does look vulnerable, they still can hold it together and just not completely fell apart. And like I said about the attack, it seemed like right now they have just so many attacking options on their team. But I will say this about Orlando and certainly about Colorado. I won't be surprised if Colorado can get something out of this. And remember how I said about usually every single week there might be a surprising result? This one might be one of them. Because Colorado this season, especially at home, they have done very well this season at home. The Rapids have already beaten TFC, although to be fair, when they beat TFC, it was a reserve side, but it was still a win, and it was against the defending champ at home. And they also got a result against Sporting KC, which they should have won that game because they were 2-0 up in that game and just completely bottled it late in that match. So Colorado, at times, they can definitely go with the big boys at home. It's just that on the road it's a different story because Colorado are just historically bad on the road. They're kind of like as bad as the Quakes in terms of their road form. So despite the fact that I said that this potentially could be 5 in a row, maybe not. Maybe Colorado can put a little bit of a surprise to Orlando City and they certainly have the players to do it. I think Colorado, with some of their new signings that they have got this season, some of them has played very well so far for them. So yeah, looking forward to see what's going to happen in this one, and certainly hoping that maybe they're going to be an upset in this one, and Colorado somehow getting a result, ending Orlando City winning streak, and maybe even ending their unbeaten streak too. But finally, it's the main event of this week, and it's pretty much the reason I'm wearing this jersey. And that, of course, is LAFC versus Seattle. It's the opening day for LAFC at Bank of California Stadium. Their first ever home game. And certainly there is going to be a lot of anticipation, and the hype level of this game is just absolutely real. And it's kind of like what happened in the first game of the season when both of these teams face off each other, and how the hype level was up. And in that game, LAFC got a historic first ever win in MLS, and certainly spoiled the Seattle opening weekend party. And now let's see if Seattle can return the favorite and spoil the LAFC party at home. Although LAFC, this team, what have they have done so far this season in terms of their first 6 games, and how they've been able to win 4 out of the 6 road games that they have gone. I mean, that is very impressive. And it could have been 5 out of 6 if they didn't bottle the 3-0 lead on El Tráfico. I know LAFC fans are probably tired of me saying that, but I just want to always bring that up, because that was one of the best kind of moment MLS has ever had, and unfortunately LAFC was on the wrong end of it. But LAFC are just, ever since they got that collapse in El Tráfico and lost 5-0 to Atlanta, LAFC has just kind of like pressed the reset button, and all of a sudden guys like Vela and Diego Rossi, and in the last game, where I think that was probably the first time since the game against RSL that it looked like it was a complete performance. It wasn't just Vela and Rossi doing the whole work. It looks like everybody kind of contribute. And, for Seattle, they certainly are getting a little bit better as each week go, but I don't know how they are going to fare against LAFC. And it is certainly going to be it's going to be a hostile environment that Seattle is going to be walking. I'm pretty sure the fans are going to be very loud, and the hype level, it's just going to be kind of like what happened last season with Atlanta's first ever home game and first ever MLS game, where the hype level was up. And granted, Atlanta did lose that one. For LAFC, they're on just such a hot streak lately. I have a feeling that they potentially are going to get a victory out of that. And I'm certainly can't wait to watch this game, and certainly look at the stadium and how it looks in real life on TV. And certainly I will able to get to experience that in May too. But yeah, that is pretty much this week's match preview done and dusted. Most likely I will watch the Friday's game. I know that Saturday I am actually going to go to a Giants game, so I'm still going to go watch some of the MLS action when I go to the Giants game. I'll probably watch this one and this one while I'm there. But most likely I will miss this one. I'll listen to this one on the radio, because I'm actually going to go to Petaluma to do the Sports Hop series this weekend. So I'll listen to the radio for this one, and I'll probably miss this one and most likely this one too. But the Sunday game I should be able to watch. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time.